Hello again, students. Welcome back to another amazing adventure through Access. I know it's very riveting and you're all on the edge of your seats, but now you're going to get your entertainment, right? Since we are discussing Access, and in this case we're going to be discussing topics from chapter 5. What we're going to talk about in this video is record validation rules. So record validation rules are rules that are set up in your table properties, and they also restrict, just like field validation rules, record validation rules restrict data from being entered in inappropriately into a single field or even multiple fields. Okay, and it's just the difference between field validation rules and record validation rules is in field validation rules we set the validation up for a single field, whereas the record validation rules we set up and we can use multiple fields inside of our table. So it has to be set at a higher level than your field validation rules. If you remember our field validation rules, or if you're going to watch that video, we did a field validation rules in our doctor's table where we used a validation rule to say that a doctor could not start before a specific date, right? In this case, we stated that our company started on January 1st, 2000. So 1/1/2000. So a doctor could not be employed by us prior to January 1st, 2000. Now, if we tried to create a doctor that started with us on January 1st, 2000, we would not get, like Mike Tyson right here, we would not get any pushback. However, if we change Mike Tyson's date to 12/31, so December 31st, 1999, we would get an error. And it'll be similar, a similar circumstance with our record validation rule. For the record validation rule, what I want to do is I want to go into the diagnosis table. In our diagnosis table, we'll notice we have a patient ID, a doctor ID, diagnosis, date of initial visit, date diagnosed, medication prescribed, and refills. With our diagnosis table, we should note that an individual or a patient should never be diagnosed with any type of disease prior to the time that they come and visit the doctor. So if they visited the doctor today, we would assume that they either get their diagnosis at the time that they are seen, right, or at a later date and time after the doctor has gone through the test and determined what may medically be what medical issues a person may be encountering, and they may even send them to a specialist or something. So the date diagnosed, that a patient date is diagnosed, should never be before they visit a doctor. So what we could say is the date diagnosed, the date a patient is diagnosed, must be on or after the date of the patient's initial visit. Okay, and we're going to set a record validation rule to the effect of what we just stated. To do this, the way that I like to do this, there's more than one way to do this, but the way I like to do this is I like to go into design view, So in our Home tab, we go to Views, and we can click on the Design View button, or click the drop-down menu and click Design View. And in Design View, we are going to have a bunch of different options at our disposal. And what we do is, in our Design tab, we're going to go to the Property Sheets. We're going to go to the Property Sheets, and we're going to click on Property Sheets button under the Show Hide group. Now, when you click on that Property Sheets button, a Property Sheets pane will open up, and you'll be able to create properties that are related to the table. Remember, our field properties are over here underneath our fields and their data types. Okay, so our field properties are underneath our field and data types. These only govern for each specific field, whereas table properties, on the other hand, concern the entire table. All right, so for this one, it looks like I already had something in there. So for this particular instance, what we're going to do is we're going to create a validation rule. So we're going to go down in our General tab, we're going to find Validation Rule, and we're going to create a validation rule that states that the date diagnosed must be on or after the date of the initial visit. So to do that, we're going to use the Builder tool right here. So we're going to press on these three dots at the end, and we're going to come into our Expression Builder. In our Expression Builder, we're going to say the date of diagnosis, so date diagnosed, must be greater than or equal to the date of the initial visit. So we're going to use those two fields from this table, and we're going to say OK. And then underneath that, we're going to give a validation text, where if an error occurs where we accidentally enter in a diagnosis date that is prior to the initial visit date, it's going to tell us there's an error and won't allow us to move on from that record. So let's go ahead and enter that in right now. So we're going to say that date of diagnosis must be on or after the patient's date of initial visit. This way we understand exactly what rule is being broken and why our new record will not be sufficient. Okay, so we've created our rule. We've entered in our text that will show if the rule is violated. And now what we're going to do is we're going to actually go and violate the rule. First, we're going to have to save the table for again, and it's going to ask us prompt us to save before we can switch over to Datasheet View. And now when we're in Datasheet View, we're going to add a new record. So we're going to come down to the bottom, we're going to come to where it says Records, and we're going to go and we're going to click on the New Blank Record. Okay, and that'll take us to the bottom and to a new record. And I'm just going to select any random person in here, any random ID, and I'm going to select any, a doctor ID, and we'll just give them some type of we'll just say it's easy allergies. Allergies, very easy, not complicated, right? Don't have to think about spelling too necessarily. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to say the date of the initial visit is today, and but the date that they were diagnosed, we're going to accidentally put that before the date. So unlike the field validation rules, if I mess up in a field which is governed by field validation rules, the error tells me and won't allow me to move from that particular field. Whereas in record validation rules, what happens is that whenever I'm through with the record and try to go on to a new record, it gives me the error. It says, warning, date of diagnosis must be on or after the patient's date of initial visit. So we can say, okay, and I can know now that, hey, my record is incorrect. If I try to go on, no, I have to correct it, right? So we'll just say that it was on the same day, just to make sure. And there we go. So that works. So that is record validation rules. Again, these rules govern the entire record and will not let us go to a new record or create a new record before we fix that problem. In the field validation rule won't let us move from that particular field until we change that problem. So there you go. That's simple, easy. Hope you enjoyed it.